Welcome to today's Explainer. Today we're unpacking a really fascinating psychological paradox. A lot of us daydream about this all-consuming romance, right? The kind where our partner treats us like an absolute rock star, a totally flawless idol. But we've got to ask, is being worshipped actually what we want, or is it kind of just a psychological trap? Let's dive right into the science behind how we want to be loved, what actually happens when we get put up on a pedestal, and what actually makes a relationship survive the long haul.
I want you to let this question sink in for just a second. If your partner worships you like a fan, is that the ultimate romantic experience? Honestly, it sounds so intoxicating. Just imagine being the absolute center of someone's entire universe. Imagine someone hanging on to your every single word, treating your little flaws as, quirky perfections, and just looking at you with that pure, undiluted awe that people usually reserve for celebrities. On the surface, our egos are screaming, "Yes, that is exactly what I want." It literally feels like the absolute pinnacle of being desired. But the source material we're unpacking today actually takes a pretty sharp left turn right here.
Not necessarily. Okay, so the psychological research we're exploring today argues that this whole fan-like worship thing is actually fundamentally flawed when it comes to long-term romantic success. What feels like a complete dream scenario often masks a deeply, deeply unstable reality. So, if being worshipped isn't the ultimate romantic experience, what on earth is actually happening when someone insists on putting you on that pedestal?
Well, here is the absolute crucial psychological distinction laid out in the text. You aren't experiencing ultimate love, you are experiencing the ultimate feeling of being needed. Now, in the moment, I'll admit, these two things feel practically identical. When someone worships you, it sends a massive jolt of dopamine straight to your brain. Your ego just inflates, you feel powerful, you feel validated, and you feel absolutely essential to this other person's survival. But being needed to that extreme degree, that isn't actually love, it's utility. It's really just an explosive ego boost, a massive emotional high that's basically masquerading as deep affection.
So in practice, this idol-style infatuation follows a really strict pattern. It always starts with an intense focus on your every move. You suddenly become the main character of their life. And this naturally leads right into high idealization, where they don't really see the real you anymore, they see this flawless, perfect avatar. By putting you up on a pedestal, the dynamic becomes entirely unequal. Their emotional fluctuations start revolving completely around you. Like, if you're happy, they're ecstatic. If you're quiet, they are absolutely devastated. And finally, you get this intense fear of loss that leads to extreme dependency. They will agree with literally anything you say just to keep you around. For the person up on that pedestal, yeah, this attention feels like an incredible, highly stimulating sugar rush.
And look, we really have to acknowledge why we crave this. The short-term high is undeniably powerful. You feel intensely favored, looked up to, and centralized. I mean, in a world where we constantly have to prove our worth at work, in society, with our peers, coming home to someone who treats you like absolute royalty, that provides a massive, undeniable confirmation that you are important. It's thrilling. This rush can actually feel way more stimulating than a normal, healthy romance, just because the validation is so concentrated and extreme. But, like any sugar rush, the crash is totally inevitable.
And this brings us to a really core psychological clash. The operating systems of these two dynamics are in reality complete opposites. So fan love logic is entirely based on loving the imagined you. It's a curated projection. A fan loves the image, the persona, the perfectly curated highlight reel. But partner love logic, that requires facing the real you. The messy, the grumpy, the flawed, entirely human you. A fan desperately wants the illusion to be true, whereas a partner actually has to navigate the reality. And the thing is, you simply cannot build a life on an illusion, because eventually the curtain has to fall.
To contrast that fan logic, true, stable connection requires a completely different foundation. Long-term intimacy demands equality. You literally must be on the same level, not operating as a god and immortal. It necessitates the mutual acceptance of flaws and honestly the absolute ability to express dissatisfaction. If your partner is too scared to tell you when you're wrong, well, you don't really have a partner, you have an echo chamber. And most importantly, true intimacy is about enduring closeness after that initial worship inevitably fades. It's looking at the other person, realizing they aren't some deity, and deciding you want to be deeply connected to them anyway.
If you don't have that equality, things inevitably build into a genuine relationship crisis. Here's how it goes down. Step 1, because they view you as perfect, you start feeling this immense pressure to maintain that impossible image. And it gets exhausting. Step 2, as you do this, your partner's own identity begins to dissolve into yours, and they completely lose their self-worth. Step 3, without their own grounding, there's a total lack of authentic collision or healthy pushback. Their own needs get entirely suppressed just to accommodate your greatness. And finally, step 4, human nature takes over. You make a mistake, you show a flaw. The filter completely shatters, resulting in severe and painful disillusionment. And that leads us to a really stark, powerful warning from the source text. The stronger the idolization, the more brutal the disillusionment. Think about it. When you're standing on the ground and you trip, you get a scrape. But when you are pushed up onto a 50-foot pedestal and you slip, the fall is devastating. When a fan realizes their idol is just a flawed human being, they don't just feel disappointed, they feel betrayed. The very foundation of the relationship just completely crumbles because it was built on a standard that absolutely no human could ever meet.
Okay, so how do we rebuild our understanding of romance from here? Well, the source provides this beautiful new baseline. I love this quote. They clearly know I'm not perfect, yet they still strongly prefer me. Just think about how incredibly liberating that is. It isn't as explosive or theatrical as being worshipped, sure, but it is infinitely deeper, it's safer, and it's so much more enduring. It's that profound comfort of being seen entirely, your flaws, your quirks, your morning breath, your mistakes, the whole shebang, and knowing that the other person says, yeah, I see all of that, and I still choose you over anyone else.
Now listen, this definitely does not mean we have to settle for some boring, passionless relationship. No way. We can actually bridge the gap. We can keep that fan-like enthusiasm, that passion, that intense favoritism, and that skipping heartbeat when they walk into the room. But we pair it directly with adult equality. We maintain our own sense of self. We stay completely grounded in reality, and we embrace absolute honesty. It turns out we can be wildly thrilled by each other without losing ourselves in the process. So how does this balanced, mature dynamic actually look on, say, a random Tuesday morning when you're stressed and running late? Well, they appreciate and praise your wins, absolutely, but they keep their own distinct identity and life goals. They depend on you emotionally, sure, but they dare to challenge you when you're being completely unreasonable. They are deeply infatuated with you, but they don't deify you. They know you are wonderfully, messily human. This is the ultimate sweet spot. You get all the thrill of romance, but without the precarious danger of standing on that pedestal.
The absolute happiest, most fulfilling part of a mature relationship sounds exactly like this quote from the text, I am still captivated by you, but I also truly know you. I mean, doesn't that just redefine romance entirely? It proves that captivation really doesn't require blindness. You can see someone with absolute clarity in all of their mundane, everyday humanity and still find yourself completely, totally fascinated by them.
So, as we wrap up today's explainer, I really want to leave you with a final provocative thought. Do you want to be worshipped as a perfect illusion? Or do you want to be deeply known and passionately chosen as your real, flawed self? I know the illusion is tempting. It heavily feeds the ego, for sure. But being known, that is where true intimacy, absolute security, and real love actually live. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this fascinating bit of psychology today. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I will catch you in the next explainer.